Hey, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about the electromagnetic spectrum. No medium. And I think most of you realize that we're talking about electromagnetic waves, which don't have a medium. A little bit of review here. All right. What we know is that wavelength, if we have a long wavelength, we're going to have a very small frequency because wavelength and frequency are inverses. Likewise, or a counter to that, though, frequency and energy, these are directly related to each other. All right. The lower the frequency, the lower the energy. The higher the frequency, the higher the energy. So what I want you to see here by looking at this is we've told you this last week, but now we're going to tell you what types of waves. Infrared waves, if you notice, they have a very small frequency but a longer wavelength. But because of that small frequency, low amounts of energy. Infrared is low amount of energy. It's not a very dangerous wave at all. Visible light. Notice visible has a higher frequency. Because it has a higher frequency, it's got more energy. Well, visible light's not dangerous really either. The lights we have on in the classroom around you are not dangerous. They don't have enough energy to do any damage to you. They do have more energy than infrared, but they don't have as much energy as the ultraviolet. As you can see, ultraviolet has a very high frequency. So they have a bigger frequency, much more energy. And this is why that ultraviolet light, this is the ones you'd be using in the tanning bed. Ultraviolet, which means UV. All right, we know that too much UV light is dangerous to us. Why is it dangerous? Because it has such a high frequency, and that means it's got a lot of energy in it. Okay, let's look at some of this. For the most part, I've been trying to get you guys to realize that electromagnetic waves have traveled, for the most part, the same speed. And in a vacuum, that's in outer space, they travel at 2.997925 times 10 to the 8th meters per second. Or a lot of times we'll simply say 3 times 10 to the 8th meters per second. It's the same way in air. It's 2.9970, so here's where they're a little bit different. But that's so far down that usually in air we just simply make the same estimation. It's 3 times 10 to the 8th meters per second. It is a little bit slower in air, but not much. For the most part, it's still 3 times 10 to the 8th meters per second. As we go down here, you'll see that it travels slower as we go through these other types of mediums, although it does not require a medium. Intensity. All right. The brightness of light depends upon the intensity. The intensity is the rate at which energy flows through a given area or space. And this is the example I did the other day when I talked about having a flashlight and shooting it. Right? If your eye is right here in front of it, right, that's your eye, you're getting a huge percentage of it. All right? Maybe as much as 50 to 75% of it's being shown right there into your eye. So you're getting 50 to 75% of the energy. But if you're clear on the other side of the classroom, and this is your eye right here, you may be dropping down to 5 to 10% of the energy, and it doesn't seem to be anywhere near as intense. It still is putting out the same amount of energy, except here it's very intense. Once it gets out to here, the light is really spread out quite a bit, and it's not nearly as intense as it is when you're really, really close. Okay, let's talk about the electromagnetic spectrum. The electromagnetic spectrum consists of light at all possible energies, frequencies, and wavelengths. The visible spectrum, that's the part that we can see right here. That's what we typically call the white light. That's the visible spectrum right there. Is only a small part of the whole electromagnetic spectrum. Each part of the electromagnetic spectrum has unique properties, and we use them for those different properties. One of the first ones we come across is radio waves. Right? Its wavelength is a very long. It's tenths of a meter to thousands of meters, so it has big wavelength. Wavelength high. Well, that means its frequency is low. What also does that tell us about its energy? its energy is also low. All right, and that's why radio waves aren't dangerous. You never hear anybody complaining about saying they're getting sick or getting hurt by radio waves. Radio waves are all around us all the time. Right. The next one we come to is microwaves. It's used in cooking. It's used in communication. Microwaves are how our cell phones operate. It's how the military communicates. The wavelengths are centimeters, so the wavelength is getting smaller. Which means its frequency is larger. If the frequency is larger, that means it's got more energy than what radio waves did. But still not a lot of energy. The next one is infrared light. It's used in heating. The wavelengths are getting pretty small. It's got more energy, and that reason is because it has a larger frequency. Ultraviolet. Ultraviolet now, I'm skipping the light that we see every day. Ultraviolet, it's used in astronomy, disinfection. Our body needs vitamin D production. Wavelengths, it's getting very small. And now it's getting to have lots of energy. Again, if it's got lots of energy, it's got high frequency. X-rays, this is used in medicine. This has got high, extremely high energy, which means it's also extremely high frequency. Very small wavelength. Gamma rays are the most dangerous. Why are they the most dangerous? Because they have the most energy, which means they have the smallest wavelength, and they have the highest frequency. And if they have the most energy, then they've got to have the highest frequency. I guess that's pretty intuitive for most of you guys. Well, hey, that's it for our notes today. Hopefully that was very informational for you guys, and I'll catch you guys on the flip side.